Helldivers 2 is a well-known third-person co-op shooter with a reputation for cinematic gameplay, movie-like feats done by players, ridiculous physics, and impossible odd scenarios. All of these things do exist within the game, and are generally quite repeatable. In fact, this novelty may be the primary appeal to the vast majority of the audience. But this well-received reputation doesn't so much as scratch the surface of the problems with said novelty, and nor does it highlight the game's biggest struggle to date: longevity. After 2+ years of patches, updates, events, and war bonds, the player base has reasonably come to something of an impasse regarding the health of the game and all it has to offer. A condition which I would best describe as self-limiting greatness, coined after what the longest time I myself, among many other longtime players, have noticed as Arrowhead's shoddy approach to game balance and design philosophy. This state of the game has apparently gotten devs to notice even the small portions of its fanbase, its most passionate enthusiasts who are arguably in the top 1% familiarity with all the game's history regarding changes, patches, updates, and mechanics. And in this video, I aim to highlight the broad strokes of the most glaring issues plaguing the otherwise awesome game that we know as Helldivers 2. I've tried to make a video like this multiple times over the past several months, but only now am I comfortable enough to put one out there because of the dev's recent AMA, which reinvigorated my interest in the topic and made me want to look back on the things causing me the most grievances when playing the game, among other issues. While I won't get into them all here, and will mainly be focusing on things to do with the fantasy of Helldivers 2, now that they seem more relevant than ever, I wanted to weigh in with my take as a veteran player since March 2024, with just shy of 900 hours on the game. I expect that even if you've heard of this all before, at least something I say here should be worthy of note. For starters, let's talk about design philosophy. Arrowhead's approach to Helldivers 2 as far as designing weapons, armors, enemies, levels, and abilities can be most aptly termed as stupidly vague. They created the grounds for a fantastic horde shooter, but cling to terms like realism, immersion, and fantasy, and movie action. So fine, they want the game to feel like an action movie, like Starship Troopers. Only Helldivers have access to extreme degrees of power, housed in their little balls of presumably steel. Typically, these are called stratagems, and there are many occasions which allow us to use stratagems to completely avoid action and/or combat. Give us 4 distinct options to use at our disposal, and suddenly I feel like an action hero, not a grunt. Speaking of grunts, a common term used to describe one type of vision people believe Arrowhead are leaning towards with this game is a grunt fantasy, in which we play highly disposable, highly expendable, totally outnumbered fragile little soldiers, all called David facing our great enemy, the Legion of a Million Goliaths. This is a vibe you can certainly check in the game, given the sheer number of times you will die in higher difficulties because the game simply threw egregious and, at times, outright unfair odds at you. Whether it be endless waves of enemies spawning on top of an objective you're supposed to defend, or a large group of heavy enemies you simply don't have the sufficient ammo to answer with. This no doubt clashes with the power fantasy which the stratagems invoke. I also don't believe it's a fantasy that appeals to the majority of the player base which bought the game in the first place. Hell, even the bombastic opening cinematic intro that plays every time you load the game up betrays that fantasy. That fantasy being, I came here to die, and that's what I did, 16 times. And what about realism, immersion? These are rather popular terms in this game's sphere, but ask around and you'll find not many people agree on its use. Its definition, maybe. The devs and the community seem to have some basic sense that, yeah, playing as the Master Chief in the Helldivers universe would be fundamentally broken both in tone and in gameplay. But what about more down-to-earth mechanics of the game? This is the fantasy that the community and the devs can't seem to agree on. We were told that the one true flag stratagem would never have a passive buff and would just be a flag of Super Earth you carry and wave around, and maybe use like a spear here and there. Justification was that there ought be no space magic in my size 5 video game. And so even after months of fans suggesting that they add a small buff like a morale boost to be given to Helldivers nearby the flag bearer, Arrowhead refused because space magic. Then, the battle for Cyberstand comes, and we get a new automaton subfaction, the Cyborgs. Among these Cyborgs is an enemy called the Agitator. You probably know the drill already. You know what an agitator does? When spotting a Helldiver, the agitator rallies all nearby automaton-type enemies with an increased movement speed and attack interval. And then, because people were understandably upset that they gave the automatons, our enemy, this rally mechanic, but not us, the player, they add to the flag an Elden Ring Shabriri's Woe type passive to the flag bearer, causing them to draw aggro because Super Earth pisses off your enemies. I kid you not, that's their lore justification. This one actually ticks me off. You know what realism and immersion is? Giving Helldivers tanks that have a whopping durability grade of medium armor with light armor weak points that kill it faster when targeted. The equivalent of most automaton infantry, like a Devastator. The armor isn't even stronger than a Hiveguard shield or Illuminate Overseer's body armor. Heavy Devastators carry shields that are completely indestructible to all forms of damage. Why can't Super Earth reverse engineer whatever metal that shit is made of, or just steal off of the millions of Devastators we've killed already? Note, as of the most recent patch, this is no longer an issue. Well, I mean, heavy Devastators are still quite strong, but they no longer have impervious shields. So that's cool. It only took 2-something years, but hey, we're here. Cool. What about stratagem balls bouncing off of every damn surface known to man and triggering an orbital or a sentry placement nowhere near where you strategically threw it? By the way, you know that hell pod of yours you always drop down in that you supposedly can steer to target enemies or reach certain points that you even upgrade in your ship modules to steer better? Well, forget it, because Arrowhead neutered it ages ago because they were upset people were getting themselves onto vantage points on mountains and shit. Achievable high ground that is now far harder to achieve. Which, look, it's reasonable to assume that devs don't want you cheesing the game by finding some crazy high point where you can snipe enemies from relatively unburdened positions. Though I would certainly argue that it wasn't even that powerful of a thing to do. You usually couldn't even get your support weapon up there. However, by killing the steering feature almost entirely, they make it impossible in numerous scenarios to navigate in things like urban environments, or in Cyberstan where your pod would happily steer you into molten lava. Great. Thanks for the freedom. Surely, it's fair to say the words immersion and realism should be second to the priority of the video game, which, hopefully, is some good fun and entertainment based on the utilization of its mechanics. Applicable to things like, if I want to strand myself on a cliff miles in the sky so I can try to snipe a Biotitan from pestering my friend, I should be able to. It doesn't necessarily destroy immersion nor balance, but it definitely gives me more opportunities for fun. And that is the running theme of this video. Sacrificing opportunities for fun in favor of a vision that the game doesn't necessarily jive with for the majority of players. But this is what they've been doing for months and months now. Not to mention that their vision is a confused, blurry mess and not at all focused in any way. They themselves have admitted about as much. I also don't think their priorities are helping at all with most of these issues and more. I feel as though Arrowhead is kind of known now for making promises and taking over a year to uphold just some of them. Look no further than how long it took for the kill zone items to return in a war bond that is still quite mid. I personally am waiting for them to reintroduce the pre-order armors for PC and PlayStation players, since they said they would, and any argument that they shouldn't because of exclusivity is moot, because Xbox players had their opportunity to get it well beyond a year into the game's lifespan. Instead, however, their top priorities as of now seem to be getting the next warbond out, the next unbalanced subfaction, the next railroaded major order. It certainly would be nice if they weren't so content focused and looked more into the matters that make this game hemorrhage players, like unfair defense levels, a boring subfaction of Illuminate consisting of 4 copy-pasted enemies spammed everywhere, half the armory in the Helldivers arsenal being essentially useless, a lack of worthwhile long-term progression, unfinished weapon customization, and not a single new orbital acquisitioned in over 2-something years. Get it together, guys. Warbonds in the Superstore are fine, but they are not the only avenue for content in this game. But now, to get to the part of the video I wanted to get to. I have hope. Recently, that is. More than I've had in the last few months with the game. I've been in a very agitated state regarding anything to do with Helldivers 2 and Arrowhead. Patience is now but a thin and waning currency when it comes to reading or watching or playing their balancing decisions, the new content, the new patches. The only thing that's changed is the AMA, which was just posted. If you don't know, Pilestat just answered, or attempted to answer, a bunch of difficult questions to do with the current state of the game and the many unanswered feedback requests formalized by the community's more ardent players. While his answers weren't all amazing by any measure, he took the time to try it, which I think is worth some level of kudos, and he did manage to reveal to us takeaways which he said he plans to bring to the team at Arrowhead. Those takeaways, in my opinion, are remarkably close to what a lot of players in the community have been looking for from the devs for ages. And so even though it may be a while before any action brings us nearer to the game we deserve, I think the fact that the head of the studio took notice of the truer concerns with the game's integrity is a huge step in the right direction. That is, of course, so long as we actually move in that direction. Needless to say, it's time to stop making the game hard for the sake of making the game hard. It's been time for a long time, but I genuinely hope now marks some kind of turning point. If nothing else, the purpose of this video is to add to the rally of voices in the crowd wanting the best for the game. I want this rare gem of a game to succeed, and I only want the best for its future and its continued success. And the best thing for this game right now is for the devs to come together, form a coherent, specific vision that agrees with its audience, and work towards that version of the game. The game must not reject fun for the sake of a specific fantasy. This game must put longevity before content. We need to bring down the double standard present in the balancing, which is creating the ever loud rules for thee and not for me. That is an inherently broad thing to ask and doesn't quite pose a step-by-step process on how to do it, but I'll say this: Arrowhead has the feedback. This video alone isn't enough, but they have an audience that is not just willing, but actively wanting to help guide them through it. These aren't people looking to argue or stir a fight because someone didn't like their favorite stratagem, or started a charity for a cause they didn't like. These are people worried about a game that matters a lot to them having its health degrade over time. A lot of times Arrowhead has chosen to listen to the wrong crowd, or outright not listen at all, selectively listening to whatever it is they want to hear, I guess. If they find the members of their community who are truly familiar with the game and want its mechanics to give it a successful, longer, less turbulent life, they will find a vision that they can truly and faithfully cater to, rather than the hodgepodge of ideas they have now. That is to say, Pilestead and the rest of them, please stay near that Reddit thread. Now that you've taken the time to notice what we've been trying to get through to you for ages, take the time to address a plan going forward which benefits and improvement on the things these takeaways highlight. People are not in apathy yet, though I myself was somewhat close to that not long ago. But the passion reading this AMA gave me was proof that I still have a lot left to support Helldivers 2, Arrowhead, and all its endeavors, even amidst its very flawed and self-limiting greatness. And I'm sure, like many others in the community, I want them to get to the bottom of it so I can keep giving that support. And that just about covers what I wanted to say. This isn't my typical video, as I prefer to talk about fiction and storytelling on the channel, but Helldivers 2 holds a very special place in my heart, and I've wanted to voice at least some of my thoughts about its life and current condition at some point. That said, I don't know if I'll be covering more of the game, but we'll see as news comes. Until then, thanks for listening to me ramble this long, and I will see you in the next one. Oh my god, bro.